What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Dolphins In Depth podcast. I'm Daniel Oyefusi.
I'm David Neal.
Oh man, you just cut me off. You just ruined it. That's the stick. You gotta give a little pause. But that's David Neal. Oh man, thanks for tuning in, y'all.
Yeah, I just
Quick,
figured I'd just throw it in,
yeah, just
throw a
jump the
curveball in at this
gun.
point in the season. It's
Just jump the
just
gun. Yeah, just to keep it light. I got you.
yeah, keep it fresh. We're down to the end. We've been together a while, It's we gotta keep it fresh,
I respect it. I got it. I got it. Thanks so much for tuning in, y'all. Quick reminder before we start, make sure to subscribe to the Miami Herald YouTube page, like, share, comment, all that good stuff, as well as subscribe to the Miami Herald. I am back from Buffalo, which, to keep it, just lightly, it was an adventure. I don't know if you can all follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Daniel Ifusi. If you followed me, my journey last weekend, um, that's the best way to put it. It was a journey. Snowy Buffalo, Western New York was hit with the lake effect snow. Before the game, toward the end of the Dolphins Saturday night game against the Bills in Orchard Park, and certainly afterward there was it was that was a snowstorm like I've never seen before. I'm from Maryland, so we got a couple snowstorms. But it was also a journey on Saturday night for the actual game. The Dolphins playing a very another primetime game, a highly anticipated game against Buffalo, but coming up short for their third consecutive loss as we get closer and closer to the start of the playoffs. The Dolphins losing 32-29 on a last-second field goal as time expired. The loss drops them to 8-6 on the season. Pretty much dashes all possible or possibility of winning the AFC East, which is definitely a bummer for Miami after they led the division just 3 weeks ago. But 3 straight losses, especially this time of the season, I mean, that'll do it for you. So the Dolphins are moving on to their next game against the Green Bay Packers at home on Christmas Day. Should be a fun one. But we gotta rewind a little bit and recap that Bills game because it was a game that I think we always say there are no moral victories, but if there's any game where after a loss you leave very, very impressed, very encouraged with the Dolphins, it have to be this game. I mean, all the talk leading up to that game was about how Miami couldn't play in cold weather, Tua can't play in cold weather. The offense has been figured out. Everyone knows how to stop them. And by and large, none of that was true. I mean, obviously, the elements weren't a factor to the point that we thought it would be. I mean, there really wasn't any snow until the fourth quarter of that game, where ironically enough, things started to turn as soon as the snow came down. But for the most part, it was just cold that they were dealing with, not really a lot of winds. Tua had a pretty good game, throwing for 2 touchdown passes in there, especially in the third quarter, which gave them a 29-21 lead. But things just started to fall apart over time. Josh Allen was Josh Allen. He put the team on his back, scoring 11 unanswered points, including on the game-winning drive. But again, if you look back at that game and as you kind of look ahead, I mean, I think that you really do have to be encouraged. You're never happy about a loss if you're the Dolphins, but it was a game where they got the passing game back, so you can kind of throw that to bed. Oh, everyone's figured out how to stop their offense, stop the passing game, crowd the middle. Nah, I mean, Tua threw some passes up the middle, threw some passes deep. They were still able to move the ball through the air, despite what the kind of narrative was after losses to the San Francisco 49ers and Los Angeles Chargers. But most importantly, they finally found that balance that they've been looking for. I mean, there's only one game where they've ran the ball extremely, extremely well, and that was against the Browns. Ever since then, I mean, the run game has been nowhere to be found. They ran for 188 yards, and it was clear early and often they wanted to run the ball with Raheem Mostert. We even saw Salvon Ahmed sighting. He had his best game of the season by far. But yeah, I mean, 188 yards, a lot of success against a really good run defense against the Bills. That's something to definitely be excited about and feel optimistic about it. When you put Jeff Wilson in the fold, the hold back from his hip injury, the hope is that you only get better there. There's still some things that they need to clean up, specifically, some of these third down situations. It's weird. It's like when they get to 3rd and 10, Tua can throw the ball around, hit Tyreek, hit Jalen Waddle, no problem. But when they get to like 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, it's like, what do we do? What do we do? They don't really have an identity yet. And we saw a lot of those struggles that led to them settling for field goals, not finishing drives. That was big in a game where the defense struggled to stop Josh Allen for much of that game. And every single time they got to the red zone, they scored. And more often than not, they scored touchdowns. So that was a big issue. Obviously, the defense, I mean, the injuries are really starting to pile up. Obviously, there were no significant injuries from that game, but at one point you had Javon Holland out, Keon Crossan out. I mean, they're getting guys that are like special teamers, and they're putting those guys in big defensive moments. And you know, you can only ask so much of a defense that's been struck by injuries. So I mean, I think that we've said it a lot of times. That defense is it's going to be what it is. They were, you know, kudos to them. They were able to make some stops in the 3rd quarter to help that comeback from that halftime deficit. But, you know, I leave that game and I'm like, okay, you would have liked to win one of those games on that 3-game road stretch. But I mean, you gave yourself a buffer where, you know, if you did kind of falter a little bit, which they did, you're still in a position where you can compete for a playoff spot. Luckily for the Dolphins, you know, they dropped, but they didn't drop completely out of a playoff spot. You know, they went from, I believe, 2 to 7 now, the 3rd and final wildcard spot. But they're in a position where, you know, they just got to win their divisional games against the Patriots and Jets after Christmas Day game, and then they're good. We're gonna get into that, you know, the playoff permutations and what they got to do later on down the road. But, you know, just to quickly hit on that, I mean, they're in a spot where they're in a position where they can take care of business despite that 3-game losing streak. And I think there are some things to be positive about and optimistic about after that loss.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was obviously there's the, you know, it's they can play with the Bills, and they can play with the Bills in the weather that's supposed to favor the Bills. You know, it's cold. It's cold. It was cold, but I always say this: if it's snowing, it's not. It can't be that bit. It can't be bitterly cold. You know,
Yeah,
and you can still play in that. Like I grew up in that. You know, when it really gets to snowing and everything, like it was in the 4th quarter. I was trying to tell people at this party we're watching it. I'm like, no, we're going outside to play football. If you're in that, if you grow up in that weather, and so that's not we're sitting around by, you know, the fireplace and, you know, grabbing hot chocolate and watching stuff on TV. So I mean, it was, you know, it was a cold weather game, but it wasn't like, you know, brutally ice bowl cold. And you know, the difference in that game was to me, you know, sort of the old, like you can't win a race or lose a race or win a game in the 1st quarter, but you can daggone well lose a race in the first turn of the 1st lap or in the 1st quarter of a game. And, you know, really simply, the Dolphins got down close in the red zone. They got cute on 3rd and short. It didn't work. Instead of just, okay, we're going to keep doing what you're doing until you really stop it. That's the wonderful thing about running the ball well, is that you can it's completely in your power to keep doing it, you know, until the other team really does stop you. And the Bills hadn't really shown they could stop the Dolphins at that point on the ground. And the 2nd and 3rd times the Dolphins had the ball, got in the red zone, short yardage on 3rd down, came away with field goals. Bills came away with touchdowns. It's 14-6. It's an 8-point difference. I mean, how different is the game if the Dolphins just come away with a touchdown, just one of those possessions? And you know, this continued to happen, you know, throughout the game. And you know, those 3rd and shorts, they didn't convert. You know, that's time. You know, it's just time, it's possession, it's momentum, it's everything else. I also thought, and I'm not a big fan of, you know, pointing a whole lot of fingers at the officiating. I did think that the last pass interference call, while it was pass interference by the book, did sort of violate the standard that had been set earlier in the game,
where a
when there
lot
were
of
a couple of non-calls,
from the on
right,
the
on the
Bills
Dolphins. And
defenders
it's like,
defending the
okay,
Dolphins. Yeah,
and all anybody asks, you've heard this 1,000 times, all players ask, coaches
just keep
ask,
it
is
balanced. Just keep it
consistency.
equal.
They want
Consistency. Yeah.
consistency. You're going to call it that way in the first quarter. Let's call it that way in the fourth quarter. No problem. You know, officials don't decide the game. Players really do decide the game. And if officials are consistent, they do not decide the game. The players decide the game. It's consistent, whether they're calling it extremely tight, whether it's pretty laissez-faire. But that did violate the standard that was set early. I mean, there were a couple of third downs. Literally, the guy, defensive back gets there, he's chopping Tyreek Hill's arm before the ball's there. I'm like, that's by definition pass interference. Okay, you're not going to call that. That's fine. But, that means that fourth quarter play, you just got to leave the Buffalo wide receiver yelling at you and fussing at you, and you just got to stand there and keep the flag in your pocket. Again, that said, that's, you kind of go back to, again, the red zone. The times Dolphins got field goals, times the other guys got touchdowns.
And in a 3-point game, I mean, that's a big difference.
Yeah,
I mean,
and also for it all, it was a chippy field goal at the end. The pass interference made it a chippy field goal, and Devin Singletary, I'm not sure what was going through his head at the end with the not going into the end zone. I sort of understand the thinking.
I don't think they
it was 30 seconds left.
No, I don't think they wanted to give anything. I mean, they've seen Tyreek Hill do worse with less time.
Right.
So they didn't want any flashbacks or anything like that. No, I think that was a smart decision.
Yeah, but I mean, two of the Tyreek is a really good combination, but two is not Pat Mahomes yet.
Pat Mahomes didn't throw a Hail Mary, man. He threw a 15-yarder and Tyreek did the rest. So you can't take a chance with him.
I was thinking, score the touchdown, man. It's get in the end zone, dude.
You're talking like you had him on your fantasy team or something like that.
No, I don't mess with that. Come on, I'm interested in the real game. Fantasy football's fantasy. I got other fantasies. So, you had this huge drive at the end, helped along, goose by the pass interference penalty. But you kind of like to get a stop there.
Yeah, I mean,
it's how the drive started, like, in Rochester.
Yeah, the 7-yard line, and they worked 15 plays. 15 plays, you're just working their way down the field. I mean, that's why, I wrote about it the day after. I mean, that's why you draft Jalen Phillips. That's why you trade for Bradley Chubb. Like, one of those guys got to make a play. I mean, it's Josh Allen. It's a tough task, but if you want to be one of the better teams, I mean, I wrote it in my game story. I mean, this was a game where the performance reminded the Dolphins of their potential, but also of the close margins for the team they aspire to be. Like, yeah, they can compete with just about any team in the NFL, but there's a difference between competing and beating. And it's those close margins where you just have to make a play when push comes to shove, and they just weren't able to do that enough times.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you come away from this game going, there's every confidence that if they have to go to Buffalo, if they have to go to Kansas City, that they can come away with a win, and in the playoffs they can. Now, will they? You don't know. You don't go in feeling like, they will, because you haven't seen that. What you've seen is a lot of close, but not quite. But I mean, the good signs, obviously, the running game got going, and even if they didn't, for strange reasons, didn't decide to use them on short yardage situations, the running game got going, and that once the running game gets going, that opens things up, obviously, the passing game. And it's funny how much, how hapless Buffalo looked at times against the Dolphins passing game after the San Diego Chargers, look
Los Angeles got to
like
put another
or
dollar in the
yeah,
jar.
yeah, yeah. Okay, another one. Yeah, Chargers, them, the Hadels, the Allworths, the Fred Deans. Um, after they look like the kind of the Fred Dean Big Hands Johnson Chargers against the Dolphins. And but once you get that running game going, that changes everything up. It opens everything up, and yeah, so maybe maybe that's part of the difference, and suddenly that the explosiveness was back in the offense on more than a few plays, and they moved the ball very consistently, and yeah, there's was a lot to unpack there. It's kind of like a big snowbank off Saturday night, but ultimately it still comes out. The Dolphins are a good team. The Bills are a very good team, and right now you know the Bills are a Super Bowl contender. You'd say Kansas City's a Super Bowl contender.
Maybe the
You know,
Bengals, but the
Bengals
Dolphins,
and the Dolphins
they're
are
they're a tier below right now,
yeah,
and
they're a
until they
team
prove
that needs to get
otherwise.
hot. They're a team that needs a little extra. Needs something else. Maybe needs Bradley Chubb to show up on their stat sheet more than Nick Chubb shows up on their stat sheet. I mean, seriously. I mean, Nick has as many sacks for the Dolphins as Bradley does, doesn't he? Recently, I mean, you know, um, and yeah, you'd like to see more from your pass rush and your defensive line in the key moments of the game. Bill Walsh, rest his soul, continues to be correct. Pass rush in the fourth quarter, still the key to winning in this league, and even more so today. And the Josh Allen just ran and passed him down the field twice,
Yeah,
and you can't let that happen. And so on to it makes you feel good for the chances against if they continue to play at that level. It makes you feel very good for the chances of them beating Green Bay, the Patriots, and the Jets. None of those three teams have played at that level recently, and the Jets are going to be a problem because their defense is very good, and that'll keep them in the game. But Green Bay was the other night was just they the Rams were garbage and Green Bay was in the recycling bin. I mean, it was not that much difference. And the Patriots, they're really looking very unpatriot like on many levels lately. And the Jets have a defense. So, but the Dolphins are to me look like clearly the second best team in the division, the team that could and should win out and go into the playoffs. And then they have to go someplace and take that next step.
yeah. I mean, like you said, they got to get hot, and if they're gonna do it, they got to get hot soon because there's only 3 games left in the regular season. I mean, they left the cold of Buffalo. They're back in sunny South Florida. So I mean, I guess that's the first step to getting hot. Although I'm not sure if it's going to be that warm this weekend. It seems like we got a cold front or something coming through for
It's good football
Christmas.
weather, man. Come on
Yeah,
now.
good football weather, as they say.
Yeah.
So we'll see if they can turn things around, starting with the Christmas Day home game against the Packers. We're gonna take a short break, but when we come back on the other side of things, we're gonna discuss that game as well as give our thoughts on the final 3 games. Can the Dolphins turn things around, win these final games, and get into the playoffs? We're gonna discuss that. So stay locked with us. What's going on, everybody? Still here on the Dolphins In Depth podcast, talking all things Dolphins with David Neal. Just had to make sure you ain't cut me off. There we go. So we're moving on to the Dolphins' final 3 games of the regular season, man. Where did time go? It felt like the season just flying by. But the final 3 games of the season, obviously the Dolphins are still reeling from a 3-game losing streak. You're starting to hear more about playoff scenarios, clinching, wins, losses, ties, all the different permutations. So the Dolphins at 8-6, seventh seed in the AFC final, third and final wildcard spot. They're not able to clinch a playoff spot or anything this weekend. They can't do it, just whether they win, other teams lose. But they can inch a little bit closer to securing a playoff berth. The AFC East is not out of reach, but it's close to a non-zero chance. If the Bills win or tie against the Chicago Bears this weekend, or the Dolphins lose or tie with the Packers, the Bills will clinch the AFC East. So very, very slim possibilities to win the division. Looks more and more like the Dolphins are going to have to secure one of those 3 wildcard spots. And again, they are in one of those spots right now. And their path to a playoff berth is very, very clear. Week 17 against the New England Patriots, win that game. Week 18 at home against the New York Jets, win that game. Regardless of whatever else happens, if they win those 2 games, they are in. But they got a game before that. They can't look ahead, just like they couldn't look ahead in other games. They got a game coming up against the Green Bay Packers, who also have, they have slim chances to make the playoffs as well. I mean, they're kind of starting to pick things up, 6-8. But if they win out and get some help, I mean, they could be a wild card team in the NFC. So they have a lot to play for as well. And when you got Aaron Rodgers on the other side of the field, you always have to take the Packers seriously. I thought that this 3-game stretch, or before the season, I thought this was a 3-game stretch that they were going to struggle. They were, as they did, they were going to drop a couple games. They were going to drop all the games, and they ultimately did. But I was pretty confident that they'd be able to turn things around in the final 3 games of the season. And I thought that, and as we've seen, their 5-game winning streak gave them kind of room for error, over the last month or so of the season. Obviously, that room for error has been minimized, and there really isn't any room for error. But I do think this is a team that is a playoff caliber team. They are a playoff worthy team. I think that they'll show that in these final 3 games. 2 of those games being at home, where they play a lot better. The defense plays a lot better for whatever reason, probably because they're not playing as good of teams. They haven't played as good of teams at home as they have on the road. I think they take care of business on Christmas. If they take care of business against the Patriots, I think they take care of business against the Jets, and they wrap up a wild card spot. Now, is it 5? Is it 6? Is it 7? I don't know. I'm not going into, I like to mess around with the ESPN playoff machine, but I ain't doing all that right now. I'm just focusing. I'm like the Dolphins. I'm focusing on the Packers, but I do think that they're going to take care of business. It's going to be tough because, I mean, they already lost to the Jets albeit when Tua wasn't out there. But as you said before, I mean, they have a really good defense. The Patriots have a really good defense. The Patriots are going to be better prepared for the Dolphins after playing them in week 1. I mean, they'll have adjustments that they have made. And even the Packers, I think that's a game that could give them a bit of trouble, just given that it's Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's seen it all. And this is a defense that has struggled all season. So I think that even the Packers game can be a little bit tough. But I think they'll take care of business. I think the offense gets back on track. I think that they can feel a little more confident after they kind of shut down all the talks about, their offense got figured out, Tua got figured out, Tyreek and Gannon got figured out. Now that that's really not the case, they can feel a little more confident in their operation, what they're doing, kind of stick to what they've been doing. I think that shows in these final 3 games. I think that they start to get a little bit hot. And you mentioned it, like, you got to get hot. And a lot of playoff success is about, like, when you start to get when you start to stack wins and stack really good performances. I think we see that over the final 3 weeks of the regular season. I think they win these final 3 games, finish 11-6, and then it's just a matter of who are they playing, are they healthy, and how well are they playing.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to wager on it, I would think you'd wager on them winning these last 3 games based on their level of play Saturday their level of play most of the last couple of months, obviously with obvious exceptions, San Francisco and San Diego.
Oh man, you did it again.
Yeah, I know. I
Throw
know.
another, throw another hundo in the jar.
Uh, Los Angeles, Inglewood. Dang on. I mean, former Hollywood, former Hollywood horse track. Um, and yeah, you would think they would do that. And one of the tricks, and this is going to be an interesting week for a rookie head coach, is you had the big game in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Okay, this was a big game. This was an intense game. This was tremendous atmosphere, and the game lived up to it. And you lost. For all the good things that happened in that game, you lost. And now you got to come back and on Christmas Day again. I've always stressed these are human beings, folks. They're in some ways they really are like you and me. Christmas Day. Who really wants to work on Christmas Day? Okay, no,
I don't
I
want to,
love
but I got to.
yeah, I love to work. Okay, I will work almost any holiday. I'm the breaking news guy at the Herald on almost all the holidays. Never Christmas. I don't like working Christmas. So you know, um, I'll be a guy day after Christmas, but not on Christmas. They don't want to work Christmas either, and Green Bay doesn't want to work Christmas. But it's the Dolphins who are here and home, and they have to bring what they brought last Saturday. If they bring that to this game, then I think they'll do what they need to do and they'll take care of business. And because I think they're a better team than Green Bay is, and even though Green Bay's been playing better lately, I think there's really not a comparison, honestly. I think the AFC overall, I think is better than the NFC, especially the NFC South. Um, the and the Dolphins are just a better team. So if they bring the same thing, then I think they're going. I think they win. The Packers can't do a lot about it. If they don't, and it's entirely possible they won't, because you're coming off that big thing. You have to battle both the emotional letdown of playing a team that from the other conference you don't see often, especially not in often in an important game on Christmas Day. So you got a battle coming in there, not really ready to do what you need to do. And that's going to be that's all that's obviously it's on the players. It's who are professionals. They are, but it's also a bit on the coaching staff and on the head coach. And this is going to be an interesting test for a rookie head coach. And then you come off that, and there's not much you know you should be able to ramp up for, or keep that intensity for the Patriots, for the Jets. And yeah, that to establish those, to kind of, you want to kick that butt, not just for this season and what it means for the playoffs, but also to establish, hey, Buffalo may be the team right now, but we're kind of the other big dog in the room in the division. And because I don't think Josh Allen's going anywhere soon. I don't think Tua is going anywhere anytime soon. Mike McDaniel's going to be there. The personalities in this division that are in this AFC East right now, they're going to be here for a little while, and so you kind of got to establish who the big dogs are. Buffalo's right now as a team they're the man, but the Dolphins can establish a solid second Silky Slim to their Geechee Dan.
I mean, you said it's not. You mentioned it's not a game that's like a foregone conclusion they're gonna win it. But I gotta say it might not be a must win. It's like this isn't a must win scenario. It's not a must win game because we know that
right.
whether they win, lose, or tie against the Packers, they can still clinch a playoff spot by winning their final 2 games. But I gotta say, I mean, if you want to be a playoff team, if you like you said want to make that announcement, I mean, you gotta take care of business, and regardless of it being a holiday, whatnot. I mean, it's still a big game in the sense of it's Christmas Day. It's a standalone game. You're back at home. Everyone's gonna be watching. I mean, they gotta they've said all the right things. The past couple of days. We're just focused on the Packers. We're not talking about the playoffs. But if you want to like playoff teams, this is the type of situation where playoff teams take care of business. Obviously, the divisional games might be a little more up in the air. But if you play a team like the Packers, who have struggled by and large this season, I mean, you got to take care of business. You got to get it done. And I think they will. I think this is a game that they control early on. I think they run the ball again pretty well. I think they move the ball through the air. Again, it's Aaron Rodgers, and you can never count him out. But it's just like that offense just hasn't really been right the entire season. They had some moments on Monday night against the Rams, but the Rams are just a shell of themselves right now. I think the Dolphins are definitely in a class above the Packers right now, and I think that they kind of I don't think they blow them up, but I think that they really control that game from beginning to end. I think they'll win like 27-17 and kind of pull away in the fourth quarter.
I'll be interested to see how they come out, and yeah, this is if I were wagering games this weekend, this would be a game I would stay away from completely. I mean, I think the Dolphins are the better team. I think they will win. If I just absolutely had to, head on a chopping block, had to pick, yeah, I think they're going to win it, and I think they're the better team. But it also feels, it has that, it does have a trap game feel to it. Yeah, it's on Christmas Day. Exactly. Yeah, everybody might be watching, but they don't want to be playing it. And they've got the Patriots and the Jets. They've got the 2 games where they know, hey,
we have to
win those games. Yeah. Right. They got to win those games. That's why I say this is going to be an interesting test of, I think, the coaching staff to help make sure that these guys are ready to play. If they do that, I think the Dolphins win it. Your score sounds pretty good. Let's say 3 field goals, 2 touchdowns gives you what, 23. Okay, I'll give you another touch for 30. So I'll go 30-17, 30-17. Yeah. Take it back, make it 30-20. Yeah, Rodgers been a little bit better. He's a little happier lately.
I'm smiling in the post game interviews.
Yeah, but I think he's yeah. But I don't think the team around him is as good as the team he's going to be on the other side of the ball. And, it hasn't looked that way at any point this season, really. I mean, even the games the Dolphins weren't that great in, they kind of look like the Packers on a normal week, So, yeah, but what do we know? Look at our picks for the past several weeks.
Yeah, not that great.
We've
Not
been
that
we've
great
been
for
we've been
us.
we've been we've been all we were on for a few, but we were off for a few. So
Yeah, we're like the Dolphins. We're on a little cold streak right
well,
now.
no, we did we I thought we were good on Buffalo. We did do the over under properly.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but we did warn that you can, if you get some snow, get some wind unless there's a bad big time wind. This could be a good offensive game. We didn't see the Chargers game right at all. So
No, rough on
um,
that one.
yeah, we saw the Niners game properly. So yeah, we're not terrible.
Low up and down, low up and
Yeah.
down. Yeah, but again, just kind of put this game in perspective. Right now, according to 538, their projections, the Dolphins have a 72% chance to make the playoffs. It jumps up to 81% if they beat the Packers. But again, you can't clinch anything. If they beat the Packers on Christmas Day, go to New England, Foxborough on New Year's Day, and beat the Patriots. Those two wins, you have a 96% chance to make the playoffs, and you're right on the doorstep of making the playoffs before that Jets game. So again, not a must win, not a game that you have to have, but it certainly helps. Gives you a little bit more of a buffer ahead of those two games. So we'll see what the Dolphins do on Christmas Day in front of the entire nation. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of the Dolphins In Depth podcast. I want to thank you guys so much again for tuning in. Reminder, as always, like, share, comment the Miami Herald YouTube page. Subscribe to the Miami Herald. Read. Another big week. We're getting closer to the playoffs and finding out if the Dolphins will return to the postseason for the first time since 2016. We're going to have a very fun conclusion to this season, and the Miami Herald is going to be there to cover it from every single angle. We'll be back next week to recap another weekend of Dolphins football. But until then, you guys take care. See you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Happy Hanukkah.
Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy
Lethal
holidays.
Kwanzaa.